Are you going away this summer and want to water your garden while you're away? Or are you sick and tired of standing every evening and watering your garden? Well, today on Fix It with Fowler, I'm going to be showing you how to install, set up and run this Aqualin dual water timer to fully automate your garden watering. Okay, so what you're going to need is a timer, some hoses or a hose, and some sort of sprinkler or soaker hose or dripping irrigation system. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the actual timer. So in the box you get your Aqualin dual timer, a couple of outlets, the inlet with a mesh filter to prevent any debris getting into the timer itself, and some really simple instructions. So this timer is a year old. We used it all last summer, and just to show you how good it is, it's been in storage and it's still got the original batteries in, and the batteries are still fully charged, so that's quite impressive on its own. So the first thing is, it comes supplied with these batteries. You just put them into this tray and that inserts in the back. Now it's got a rubber seal which makes it fully waterproof. So once you've put that in, you can then turn it over and we can now have a look at actually how to program it. So like I said before, you've got dual outputs, a left and a right, and the first thing we need to do is set the clock. So if we turn the dial to set clock, it's now flashing, and we can just literally press the plus or the minus button to set the correct time. Once you've selected the correct time, we can then turn it to start time. So this is the start of the actual watering. Now at the top you can see it says left, and if we want to program the right, we just press the button again and it will scroll between the two. So we start with the left hand side. So start time, we can select any time you like. For argument's sake, that'll do. For how long? So this is how many minutes. So you can have it literally just for a few minutes, or anything right up to an hour. The next stage is how often. You can have it every 12 hours, twice a day, once a day, 2 days, 3 days, and so on, right the way up to a week. And then individually we can have it into hours. So you could have it every 2 hours, every 4 hours, depending on what your watering needs are. Now I normally have it every third day, depending on how hot the weather is. So once you've set that, you can then turn it around to run, and that's that program set for the left hand side. So if we want to set now the right hand side, we'll press the button to change it to the right, and we'll go through exactly the same process. Select your start time, how long, how often. You could have this one every day, it might be something totally different. And when you're happy with that, you just turn it back round to run, and that puts the timer into an automatic setting. Now if you wanted to override them settings for whatever reason, you can press this button here. That's a manual override. You can put for how many minutes, which side, the left or the right. Now if you leave that, once that stops flashing, that will automatically allow the water to flow through that side for them 3 minutes. And that's as simple as it is to set the timer up. I'll put the instructions on the screen and you can pause it to have a look at that. If you're finding this video helpful, please don't forget, in the description below there's a links to every product I've used, including the timer, the hoses, the soak hose, the sprinklers, and I'd really appreciate it if you use them links, because that will help me. The other thing, don't forget, if you like what you're seeing, give the video a thumbs up, leave me a comment. Most important thing, subscribe to my channel. Okay, so the next thing is obviously to install your timer to your outside tap. So if you've got any problems with your tap, if it's leaking, if it's stiff to turn, then I'll post a link to my latest video of how to replace one of these taps. Really simple, probably cost you less than £10 to do. So on to actually installing then. If you take off your normal hose adapter, now you'll see inside this it's got a rubber seal and a filter. Now that stops any contaminants coming into the filter and into the timer and blocking it. So the first thing we'll do is we'll take off this plastic piece and we'll gently turn that onto the thread. Now these can be a little bit tricky to start. Now they've got a rubber seal in, and the trick really with this rubber seal is not to over tighten it. You can always just give it a tweak once it's installed if you've got a slight leak. So again, we've got another rubber seal. Now this timer just goes onto the top like that. And once that's into position, that's the actual timer installed. Now with the timer itself comes two hose attachments. Again, they've got rubber seals, so we don't need to over tighten these. And you can put one on each side. And that's the timer actually installed into the tap. So the next thing to do is to run our hoses to whatever outlets you want. Now that might be a soaker hose in a border, it might be a sprinkler, and it just depends what you're going to use them for. You could actually use this for an irrigation system like a drip feeder. Again, depends on each personal preference. So now I'm going to run a hose and set up a sprinkler at the top of the garden. So there's loads of different sprinklers like we said before. This is just a cheap one that I've got. Really easy to adjust. You just alter these sections here and that alters how far this tilts. Unfortunately, you can't alter the spray pattern, it's fixed. So that could be good for watering larger areas like lawns and stuff, or particularly faced directly at a border. But I'm not going to use one of them. What I'm going to use is something called an impulse sprinkler. Now sometimes you see really big versions of these on fields, in farmers' fields, and they do give out a lot of water over a short period of time, but they cover a large area. Now this particular one has got these red little nodules, and what that does, that limits the radius of the spray pattern. So you've got that adjustment first, and you can just slide them round to alter where that points to. The other thing you've got is you've got this here, that alters the actual jet of water, turns it to a mister or just a pure jet of water, and this here angles the height of that jet, so it's really adjustable. And for this area up here, what we're trying to do is we're trying to actually water all the way around, including under these big trees, because in the summer this gets very little water and we really want to look after this. This is a nice little nature garden we've made. So I'm going to plug this in, set this up, and I'll just show you it running to show you just how good these are. Okay, so top tip, for the time to actually water, the best time to water is the early hours of the morning. Now, the reason for this is the water will saturate slightly into the soil, the plants will use what water they need, and the rest will evaporate as the sun comes up. If you water later in the evening, that water saturates the soil and will sit there all overnight, and that can cause mold and spores and fungus, which is something that you don't want. Okay, so a few things that set this timer apart from others is firstly that it's a dual timer, both independently programmable. The next thing, which is probably the most important thing, is this rain delay sensor. So if you know you've got rain coming, say like you've got rain today or the next day, on this, when it's set to run, you press the plus button and you can delay it for a day, 2 days or 3 days, or for nothing. So if you know you've got rain coming, you can save running the cycle and you can save some water by delaying that start time of the cycle. Now that actually works for both sides. So if you delay it, both sides won't water for that period of time. So that's the system all set up. We've got a sprinkler in the back garden and a sprinkler up the top on the front garden, all fully automated now. And like I said, I'm really pleased with this. This is over a year old and it still works as good as when we bought it. So don't forget, I've posted links for everything I've used in these videos below. They're Amazon affiliate links, and I'd be really grateful if you use them. And please check out my channel. I've got loads of different DIY videos, including a complete garden series.